Hello?
Hello. Hey, Vin. Thanks for joining. So sorry, got a little bit late start here this morning, folks. Thanks for joining the Amazon DocumentDB Insider Hour today. First of all, you may recognize that I am not Karthik. So I am taking over for Karthik Vijayaraghavan, who has been hosting the previous, I believe, like 19 episodes of this. So he's been doing a fantastic job and got some big shoes to fill here. But good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be viewing us here. And just like to introduce my guest today, Vin, and we're going to be talking about performance insights, a new capability in DocumentDB. So Vin, if you'd like to say a few words and we'll get into the discussion.
Sounds good. Can you all hear me well today?
Can hear you fine.
Awesome. Yeah, so hey everybody, my name is Vin. I'm one of the product managers with AWS DocumentDB. I'm super excited here today to talk about performance insights.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, we're happy to have you here. And so I guess just maybe a brief introduction and what do you do here at AWS before we jump further into the discussion?
Yeah, here I help develop features, talk to many of our customers here that use DocumentDB and anyone who's actually willing to who's looking to adopt the product really, and just here as a product manager.
Cool. All right. Well, again, thanks. So I guess with that, what have you got about performance insights? So curious to hear about this new capability.
So let me just share one of my screens here. So actually, I'm gonna have to rejoin. I'll be right back, Doug. So let me just hold on tight here. There's some technical difficulties.
No worries. So, okay, yeah, first time hosting the show, so I'll take the blame for this one. But Vin will be back any moment here, and we'll get this started. All right, here he comes.
All right, I'm back.
All right, excellent.
You know that moment where you're trying to share your screen and you're like, oh, it just doesn't work. I wonder why. You realize you have these security settings on.
I hate that.
All right. So let me share my screen here. Okay, I've got a quick presentation just to help me walk through some of this. Yeah, so we live with my presentation here.
Yes, we are. We're good to go.
Cool. All right, so one of the features that we launched recently is a feature called Performance Insights for AWS Amazon DocumentDB here. So what is this feature? So this feature is really a complete monitoring solution that you can enable for your DocumentDB instances here. So it includes, installing the agents to help collect the data, moving all the data into a database where it stores all your performance information. And then third, it actually, we have an application front end that actually queries that performance data to help you show you what those all that performance data is to surface it up to you. So it's really a complete monitoring solution that you could add on to your DocumentDB instances, all within a single click. So I'll be sharing that with you in a bit.
Cool. So
yep, go ahead.
Sorry, Vin. So I was just going to ask, I mean, this sounds really interesting, but we've got the profiler in DocumentDB. So what am I getting, why should I look at performance insights versus the profiler that I've already got access to?
Yeah, I think actually I think that, it's not really one versus the other. I think they really greatly complement each other. right? So I'll only show you in a bit where this tool actually makes it. So I think that Profiler, the thing about it is when you enable it, you get a lot of text in some cases. It's a lot to go through. Performance Insights really is to help you help you get to the problem sooner. There's a big visual aspect to it, a big UI aspect to it. So you can see on the very right, this is just a really quick screenshot of that of that dashboard. And we're going to go into a demo in a bit where I can actually show you how quickly it is and you can get to the problem sooner.
Got it. Okay, so it's at a high level, it's a more graphical representation than log entries that I have to try to dig through.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, I think that there's two words I really like to highlight here when I talk about performance insights. One of them is, what's causing load on your instance, and the second is when is it occurring, right? So I think that's really important to help you identify, what's causing the problem, whether it's a specific application or a specific query, or is the loads coming from a specific host, and it helps you identify where in the timeline it actually occurs. So here's some just example, questions that you might have coming into, performance questions that you might have about performance insights. So for example, you might be asking, well, when was there unexpected load in my database? Which queries have the most load impact on my database? Which clients or applications is causing load, where it's coming from, and what type of resource constraint might be caused on my instance. For example, is it CPU bound, is it IO bound, and where it's coming from? Just as a few example questions that you might have that performance insights can really solve.
Cool.
So I think,
sorry to interrupt there, but back on the previous slide, you were talking about the hosts. So just wanted to share an experience I had with that aspect, right? With a customer I was working with, talking to them, they had some increased latency in their workloads, right? And they were trying to determine where it came from. And it just so happened they did have performance insights enabled. After talking to them for a few minutes, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we have performance insights enabled." It's like, well, let's go look at that, right? So looked at the queries, didn't see anything really unusual there, right? It was all the queries they were expecting to run, and then looked at the hosts, right, which was great, right? Because I had a breakdown of all the different hosts connecting to the cluster, and then right away the person says, "Oh, that shouldn't be there. I see the problem." So what had happened is a host that had been previously decommissioned, just because it had like an older version of the code or something. But the point was, it was a host that had been decommissioned that wasn't supposed to be connecting to the cluster any longer. So within just a few minutes, he could see that there was this host there that shouldn't be connecting. It was connecting. They took that out, turned it off again, and everything went back to normal. So yeah, that visual way to see what's going on, it really helped in that one case. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of others, but that's the one that personally I had experience with there. It was just really nice to see it in action with the customer.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear, actually. Like, I think there's a few more stories along that line where we had customers really help identify, not with the host, but just with the query. I know we're kind of like sharing all these stories already before you even show the dashboard. I'm super excited to actually get to that, so we can.
Sorry. Yeah.
So our viewers can actually see what's going on. But great story though, Doug.
Right.
Yeah. Where was I? All right. So I think that just going back to our performance insights dashboard, I think that it's really centered around this one concept of database load, right? So I'm going to just take a quick detour, a 5-minute detour, just explain to you what it is. So over the course of time, when you have a connection to your database, if it's currently running a query, we consider that session active. So that will be considered an active session. And if it's idle, it's no longer active. Now, if you have multiple users, you can imagine this graph, and multiple connections, they are running queries at different times, and they're going to finish at different times. So there's various sessions at different times. Now, if you stack this on top of each other, you start getting a graph that kind of represents load from a certain perspective. So you can see here at some point, you have 4 users you have four sessions that are considered active because 4 queries are currently running, right? It's waiting for more resources to finish that query. Now, with performance insights, what we do is actually we sample about 10 times per second. And we use the sampling to help grab a metric called average active sessions because it's averaged out through these 10 sampling points. So here I have just one active session with one user. So you can see that the average active session throughout the sampling is 1. Now you can get a very similar view if you have 2 users running a query at 2 different times. So you can see here there's an average active session of 1. Now the challenge with this is it doesn't really tell you. It does tell you what the load is on your instance, but it doesn't tell you, well, which users are running what queries are contributing to the active session. So in addition to actually determining whether we have an active session, we also collect other information such as query, states such as IO, CPU, client application information, as well as host. So if you color code this, you start getting a graph that looks more like what you see on the screen with the blue and the green, where you might have 2 users. They're both contributing a load of 1. However, the cause behind it is a bit different. So you can see here it's blue and it's green. So that's in short what load is. Yeah. So let me go ahead and just switch over to our demo environment. Just give me 1 second here while I share. Okay.
All right.
Do you see our demo environment?
I do, Ben.
Awesome. So actually, before I have the performance insights dashboard open, but I realized before I go there, why don't I just show you all how we can actually enable this feature? Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a add-on feature. You don't need to configure this. You can configure this in 2 ways. One of them is at create time, and one is configuring it on existing instances. So here, if I create a new Amazon DocumentDB cluster, if you scroll down under advanced settings, you are going to be able to see a new section here called performance insights. So to enable performance insights on all the instances of your cluster, you could just click on enable performance insights. And that will enable on all the clusters there.
Got it. So all the instances in that cluster is going to have performance insights enabled if I do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, another way you could actually enable it is by selecting a specific instance and turning it on. So here I'm selecting one instance called DocDB cluster, and I can click on modify. And under modify, there's a section here also called performance insights, enable performance insights here. So you could do it in 2 ways. If you have an existing instance that's already running, you can enable performance insights. And this will work on both 3.6 and 4.0 version DocumentDB clusters and across all instance types.
Nice. So just curious there, I see that there's options for Kms keys. What's going on there?
Yeah, Kms. So one thing you could do, so let me just go back. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. So if I go back here, I'm going to go under config. So Kms keys, this is the key that is used to encrypt your data, right? So by default, I am selecting the default Kms key that I'm using to encrypt all the performance insights data when it's stored on our side. You could actually select your own Kms keys to encrypt that data so that when it's stored, it is safe and we don't see that perspective. From that perspective.
Nice. Okay, cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So on the left-hand side of the menu, now you're going to be able to see if you go to the console, you're going to see a new tab here, and it's linked to the Performance Insights dashboard. So on this dashboard, you can select the instance type that you want to view. And so I'm just going to select one of the instances here. So I'm going to walk you all through this dashboard here. Roughly, this dashboard is split into 3 sections. First is counter metrics, and counter metrics is additional metrics that you can view on your instance. So today you can actually select up to 15 operating system metrics. So you could select additional CPU, memory, swap, or networking type of generic OS metrics. And this is useful even though you have some of this already through CloudWatch. Seeing it here overlaid in time along with your load of your database can help you cross-reference and help you identify, help you diagnose problems in a different way.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. And on the very top, one thing you can notice, it goes from 5 minutes to 1 week. So I can go back to 24 hours, for example, and look at loads from different perspectives. I can identify really when, up to a week.
Okay.
So
cool.
on this,
sorry, I was gonna say I see that correlation there with the counter metrics and the database load in the chart below. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you can see here, there was high load, in the high 90s on average, as there was more load on my instance. So here I'm looking at the last 24 hours of activity on my database. I've selected 24 hours in the very top. So the second component of our dashboard is the database load graph, and this is arguably, in my opinion, one of the more probably the most important aspect or visual piece of this dashboard that helps you identify load. So I was mentioning earlier, there's average active sessions. So throughout this 1 hour period segment grouping, you can see that there was an average of at this one point 5 average active sessions. Now notice this dotted line here. This is the max CPUs, and the reason why we show that is it actually acts as a ruler stick. So if you have 5 average active sessions throughout this time, right, 4.5 throughout this time, and you only have 2 CPUs, then those CPUs are saturated, serving some workloads, and it's constantly being used. And if this happens over a long duration of time, it means usually one of 2 things. Either your workload could be optimized for that, for solving that problem, or 2, your instance is under provisioned. So you might want to change the instance type to help you with some that scale aspect of it to ensure that's running performant.
Okay. That's great to know. And so is there like any way that I can alarm on that so that I don't have to keep looking at insights, but just maybe set an alarm and see if I'm got more average active sessions than max vCPUs?
Mm-hmm. Actually, there's a metric in CloudWatch. You can actually go to CloudWatch, and there's a metric now called average active sessions for each of your instances. So you can alarm on it in addition to viewing it here. So you can say, hey, I would like you to alarm on it once the average active sessions is anytime over 2. And that's going to send you an alarm, just like you could alarm on number of connections or number of CPUs used in your environment.
Okay. It sounds like I could use that. Maybe could be my entry point into performance insights, if you will, since let's say I've got 5 instances. If I have an alarm, it'll tell me exactly which instance to go look at. So
yeah, even 5 you can imagine fitting that on one screen, but think of 100, right? Like it's not uncommon. So imagine you had 100. You don't want to be staring at all these dashboards. You don't, or maybe imagine you're using your 70-inch TV with 4K. Even then, fitting 100 dashboards is kind of hard to keep track of.
That's true. Yeah. All right. So that metric sounds like it's going to be very, very helpful. Cool.
Yes. One thing I'd like to point out here is, I know while we're looking at this 24-hour time frame, I can actually select this cursor and zoom in. So here I'm just going to zoom in here. So that peak, throughout that peak, it's not just a single peak. I can see that there's different workloads at different times. I'm just going to zoom in that last segment here. And so here I can see that most of the time it's spent, using CPU cycles on my screen. And this means that the sessions that are currently, the queries that are running on my instance of the load is actually a lot of time waiting on more CPU. So it's largely CPU starved throughout these minutes in time. Now, another way I can view this data is determine, okay, well, what kind of queries are running in this duration? So you can see here I have two queries, largely two queries. One of them is just a simple find query, and you can see that the values are parameterized, meaning that if you have multiple queries that look very similar in query shape, right, or the query looks very similar, you're going to see that reflect here. So you can see that most of the time the query is running against customers, and it's finding a first name. But that first name is question mark, meaning that that's a parameterized query. And you can see here, there's also some create index. There's also a create indexes value here. I can see in the beginning. In addition to that, you can also view this from other ways. So you can imagine in your connection string, if you specified the app name field, you can actually see where these queries are coming from as well. So I have two applications during this time frame. The Mongo shell, which looks like it was running some queries in the very beginning, and I have another app called Meet app, which is generating most of the load throughout this duration here.
Okay. So is there a way that I can find out what queries we're running from Mongo shell?
Yeah, like you kind of just bring me to the next part in the bottom,
Okay.
which shows you top aspects. So you can see a very similar view in the bottom. Shows you top weights, top queries, hosts, database, and applications. Now, if I go under applications, I can see these exact same two application names. Now, what I could do is look at queries. Now, I'm going to go back and look at queries in the very top. And I can see in the bottom here under applications. Now, if I select one of these applications, it actually applies a filter to this field, which is why I was saying earlier that this graph is arguably one of the more important pieces of this dashboard. So for example, you want to see what queries are coming from Mongo shell. I'm going to select a Mongo shell here. And this is going to apply a filter onto the database load graph. So you can see here that the top queries coming from this Mongo shell application is just this create indexes. So this is the time when I was creating an index on this collection under customers.
Nice. Okay, yeah, so that makes it really easy to drill down and see what's going on at the application level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So alternatively, I can look at select on Meet app, and this will give me all the queries that are coming from this one application. This is my Python application here that's running pretty much one query the whole time. Six of these queries actually. It looks like on average it's throughout this duration.
Cool. So I got sorry to interrupt the flow here, Vin, but saw a question come in on the chat. So this is a question we get a lot. It's like, why choose DocumentDB when I can use Dynamodb? So I'll offer my take on that, and if you've got anything to add, Vin, certainly add. But really, it comes down to a lot of times the use case. All right, if you've got a use case where you need to have flexible indexing, say on JSON data, right, where you maybe need to do more than just a lookup based on a key. So maybe you need to look up, like in an e-commerce example, you need to look up customer orders based on a customer name and maybe a date range, as an example, right? But the point is, ad hoc lookups, right, where you need to query it in lots of different ways. You got the ability to create indexes, flexible indexes to support those types of queries on the JSON documents in the database. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the primary reason or primary consideration when looking at the two. It's really how you're accessing the data. All right, is it more flexible, dynamic, or is it pretty static access patterns? So thanks for that question.
Yeah, I just like to add a little bit to that. I think it's also one thing that we do it with DocumentDB is we are MongoDB API compatible, right? So if you're coming from a Mongo application and you're looking for an alternative here, a managed alternative here with at AWS, DocumentDB is going to be a great choice for you as well.
Okay. All right, thanks, Vin.
Yeah, were there any other comments? I'm kind of I'm so focused on this dashboard, Doug.
Oh yeah, no, we're good.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Go on.
So one of the I'd like to circle back on this top end aspect on the bottom here. One thing that I was mentioning about is parameterized queries, and I think that one other common question we get from our viewers and customers as well is, well, this is great. It kind of shows that it's parameterized, which shows a grouping. But what if I wanted to know the exact parameters used in this query that might be contributing to the loads? I mean, in this example, I have six of the same query, but if I go here and I can see the parameterized query and I select each individual one. So if I look first, I'm going to select the parameterized query. I can see that, hey, I am, querying the customer's collection and then looking at, for example, filtering on the first name. Now, if I select one of the queries underneath it, which is part of that parameterized query, I can see the full value. So I can see that the first name I'm querying on is Jesse for first name. So you can get the full query here just by selecting the radio button under this parameterized grouping.
Nice.
Yep. And on top, you can actually see, that applies that filter, that scope I was mentioning earlier onto the database. So I can see that this query, this very specific query alone, I can see how much CPU it's pretty much waiting for in that time, or how much IO it's waiting for coming from that instance at the time of.
Really, this is really great, really useful, and how quickly you can drill down into what's going on.
Yeah, there's many ways to mix and match some of the filters in the bottom here with the different slicers and aspects on the very top, so you can get that information.
Very cool.
Cool. Yeah, actually, that's all I had for a demo.
Okay, so just trying to recap. I mean, yeah, so you showed us how to enable it and things like that. But so I noticed, it mentioned preview. So currently in preview, but does this cost me anything to use it? Like, if I want to start using this right now and trying to better understand what's going on in my cluster, is it free or is it an extra charge?
It's free. So we can store your data. At the moment during preview, you can go up to 1 week back. Later on, when we go into a GA aspect, we are still going to have the 7 days free. We're still going to have this 1 week free of data where we collect the data, store the data for you, and you can access this dashboard free of charge, even as we go into a GA general availability of this feature.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, it seems easy to enable, no cost. So yeah, definitely encourage folks, if you aren't already using this, do try it out. Definitely not trying to make a pun, but definitely going to get a lot of insight into what's going on in the cluster there. So
yeah.
So that's a bad dad joke or something there. I don't know. Anyway. All right. Well, I know earlier, Vin, and sorry, I was kind of jumping around there a little bit, keeping you on your toes, but mentioning a customer that I was working with, you had mentioned you had heard, some other feedback from others. Any that you'd like to share?
I mean, we had a story. We had a interesting instance where I was showing. I think that the view where I was showing by query and by applications, this was something that was this visual representation was very cool. to a lot of customers. We actually helped the customer identify some time back, I believe, where they were selecting by looking at which queries came from which application, and it kind of helped them identify those queries coming from the app that needed optimizing. So, for example, they were finding some very slow queries where they realized that they required indexing. So again, that helped them just with the way that they can use this dashboard to slice and dice that information.
Got it. Because if correct me if I'm wrong here, but if they're not already using the profiler in DocumentDB, they wouldn't really be able to know, other than they could see maybe some CPU utilization increases or something like that in the metrics. But beyond that, then they'd have to enable the profiler and catch some of those queries and then try to figure out where they're coming from. All right. Whereas this, you turn it on, a couple of seconds later, you're already gathering the metrics and you can see what's going on there.
Yeah. One thing that's really interesting, I think, about Performance Insights is that it can help you filter out noise. And what I mean by that is, because we do this sampling, so Profiler is going to give you everything that's over, say, the threshold that you specify. So if it's 50 milliseconds, you're going to get all the data post 50 seconds. That includes some things that could be potentially noise. Now, if you have one query and it's not run very frequent, and it's very fast, you might question, okay, well, if it's not running very fast, if it's running really fast and it's not running very frequently, and Performance Insights doesn't pick it up, you might question yourself. You might ask the question, well, does it contribute to any reasonable load that I should be concerned about? Right. So you kind of filter that noise from that perspective. Now, database load is going to pick up two categories and everything in between. One of them is you might have very long running queries, but there's a few of them. So you can see here, I have some very long running queries and it's very few of them. Sample, it's at 6 queries, through my example. The other example is you might be having a lot of queries, like say hundreds or thousands of queries coming in, but all of them finish very, very fast, like sub-millisecond. But Performance Insights is going to capture a subset of those, because inevitably, throughout a certain time iteration, it's going to actually sample that, and you're going to find that. So you can see that you can solve two classes of problems here, really. It's either really slow queries, a few of them, or you could be having a lot of queries and they finish really quick. But something that's in between, where it's not very frequent and there's not a lot of queries, Performance Insights will just filter that out, really, just from the nature of sampling.
Got it. Yeah. So it's kind of the way I look at it, right? I mean, it's kind of helping you, guide you where to look.
Yeah.
Yeah. You may land on that query and may not necessarily realize that, hey, this is just being run once a day without, maybe looking at additional log files or something like that, or going back checking the application code. So this is kind of already heading you in the right direction of where to look. So yeah, definitely, I can see it saving a lot of time and troubleshooting performance issues. So very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else, Vin. I appreciate your time here, and appreciate you sharing this new capability with us here on the show today. But before we wrap up, I do just want to share something really quick. And okay, so I just want to let all of our viewers know that if you are watching this before June 27th, because this will be recorded and you can watch it later on. But on Monday, June 27th, we're having what we call a focus day. And if you're new to DocumentDB or new to document databases in general, this is a good opportunity for you to join. It's a 2-hour session, right? So you're going to learn more about document databases, learn about DocumentDB, and get your hands on, right? Be able to get your hands on with it free of charge. So go ahead and scan that QR code. You could register if you're interested. Again, that's going to be on Monday, June 27th. So, all right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our talk here, Vin. Again, appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their day to join here. and we'll see you all again next month, third Thursday of July. So in between, I know we got some holidays coming up, so enjoy your time off, and we'll see you all again soon.
See y'all. Thank you so much again, Doug. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Vin. Take care.